The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my tickets!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, we continue our journey from the corner to the deuce. Yes, we are looking at all the great works of David Simon. And tonight is season 2 of The Deuce.
Season Deuce.
Season Deuce. That's right, Season Deuce. Now you got me doing it. The Deuce was brought to you by the good people at Blown Deadline Productions, Rabbit Bandini Productions, and Spartan Productions. Season 2, well, first of all, The Deuce, if you haven't seen season 1, is an American drama television series created by the great David Simon and George Pelicano, set in New York City during the 70s and 80s. It was broadcast on HBO in the U.S. and premiered September 10th, 2017. The Deuce features a large ensemble cast, including James Franco playing twins and Maggie Gyllenhaal in a tour de force performance as an ambitious former prostitute who becomes an adult filmmaker. And this tells the story of the golden age of porn, the legalization and rise of the porn industry in New York City that began in the 70s. The themes include government and police corruption, a violence and drug epidemic, real estate booms and busts that coincided with the change. And it's nicknamed for the 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Ave, of which I spent a great deal of my 20s. By that point, prostitution was gone.
He was born too late, ladies and gentlemen.
Way too late. When I was born, this shit was just starting. On September 20th, 2018, HBO the second season premiered September 9th, 2018, and then was renewed for a third season. Season 2 takes place between 1977 and 1988. And that voice you hear, ladies and gentlemen, is the Starch. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Starcher, how do you do, sir?
Appropriate title for The Deuce. Yeah, Mark, ready to jump into talking about season 2 of this series. And I really didn't think when we first talked about, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, that this wasn't going to be my jam. I didn't think it was going to be my jam, and because of the subject matter, but I found myself very invested in this series. It's great. It's
a period piece, and it's we're going to get into sort of the meat of season 2, which is one of the major storylines is Candy, who is played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, makes a feminist porno out of the fable Little Red Riding Hood. And it's funny. I sometimes forget that not everybody exists in the community that I got pushed ass backwards into, the poly kink BDSM community, where porn is fairly prevalent. Sex work, sex in general, most people in that community are very sex positive. It's talked about openly. I mean, as Jesse knows, because he took the BDSM quiz, there's so many things that you can pursue and be in the world and talk about. Jesse can talk about being a brat, the bratty sub, Jesse Starcher.
I learned so much that day.
You really did, and I have not stopped talking about it with anyone I meet. But for most normies, pornography is looked poorly upon It's one of those hidden vices. It's, one of those things like we acknowledge. What's so funny, especially in the American West, because I don't think Europe is this way, but in the American West, we sort of look at sex and sexuality and then pornography as something sinful, as something shameful, something that needs to be hidden. It's a thing that you do, privately in the basement of your house behind the door that says "Beware of the leopard," and it prevents you from having open conversations and dialogues about something that is vital to the human existence, and that is sex and sexuality. So it's funny when you say, I didn't think this was going to be my jam. I can almost hear the next words out of your mouth being, because I don't want to talk about porn in public. That's something I did.
Right.
I wait for my wife to go to church and then I deal with it. I don't tell anyone. You think me and Evan Bevins are fucking talking about porn? We're playing Marvel Snap, for Christ's sakes. We're good Christian boys.
That's right. Such a taboo subject. Yeah, you're not.
That's the word.
You're not supposed to bring this up with anybody that unless it's a very, very personal conversation that you're having with somebody. However,
you ever kind of rub elbows with them and be like, "What kind of porn are you watching?" And they're just like tranny, but he has to be really masculine. What the fuck?
I can remember, going to college, and it was a frequent topic of conversation. But yeah, as soon as you get out of college and you get out of that, kind of immature, it's not something that comes up at all.
Right. Yeah, you're at the water cooler at your job before we all started working from home, except for those of us in my profession. And I'm not bitter about it at all. Did you see the latest episode of Seinfeld? Did you happen to catch the football game? Oh my God, my wife, what a bitch. My kid Naruto run into the wall. Let me tell you, I spent the entire night in the emergency room. These are the things you talk about at work. Not, oh my God, I jerked off to this tranny orgy. They were all dressed as clowns.
Not work. Oh, wait a second. There is what is the anagram for that? NSFW, not safe for work, whatever that is. Yeah.
Right. But we're going to talk about it, Jesse. I'm gonna crawl up in your very comfortable space and push you out of your comfort zone. How do you feel about that?
Oh, off we go. Well, I'm not surprised.
Jesse, you and I usually cross the pronunciation bridge, but tonight we're crossing the comfort zone bridge.
Oh boy.
Let me ask you a very important question, Jesse. And before I do, I'm going to tell our audience at home, because we do have an audience now and it's growing. Believe it or not.
My.
Can't always tell by the live audience, but our numbers are interesting, and we have a good following on TikTok. So Jesse and I used to do something called the Wiki Rabbit Hole.
Yes, we
would read something from a Wikipedia page, and then there would be a hyperlink to another subject, and then we would click that and read up on that and comment on it, and that would have a hyperlink to somewhere else. And before you know it, we were into tranny porn, and it was just the craziest thing. Take a drink tonight every time I say that.
Tranny porn.
That's the phrase that pays, everybody. So Jesse, for TikTok purposes, do you think something as designed mostly to stimulate male interest and imagination and sexual behavior, like standard good old-fashioned Nancy Reagan and apple pie American pornography, can, whether it be in pictures or words or video, can it be something that can be feminist in nature? What do you think? Because that is what a big part of season 2 of The Deuce is about the idea that this very male-dominated fantasy subgenre is something that can be manipulated and twisted and maybe even corrupted, if you ask some people, into something that is sex positive, sex forward, and feminist. I think that is an interesting debate and discussion. One might even say intercourse and conversation. What do you think? What do you think, Jesse?
I mean, yeah, I think that there's an avenue for that. Most of the season, just like you said, kind of deals with taking that, and you got to think that on the surface, not too many people are thinking about the art of pornography. Nobody's thinking about that.
The phrase "fuck films" gets said a lot in this season.
A lot.
Look, if either take a drink every time I say tranny porn, or they say "fuck film" in season 2 of The Deuce, and you will have alcohol poisoning.
Right.
And they were like, it's one thing that the one producer character, I'll pick up his name in a second, but he's like,
Wasserman?
Yeah, I believe so. He's like, we're making movies for guys to jerk off to in peep shows, or to be shown in dirty movie theaters. We're not making art here. We're making jerk off films. And Maggie Gyllenhaal is like, but can't we do more than that?
Right. And what's funny is that if you remember in season 1, when somebody first showed up and Harvey is filming,
right,
they're filming it under the guise of art.
Right.
But that's not what, that's not what
I think what he said was like a student film.
Yeah. They're trying to pass it off like it's some type of artsy
I totally want to try that. Like, I want to try to like film, like, I want to beat a kid or, like rob a bank or something. I got a student film. See if that's fly. See if I get a pass. Cop's like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so when somebody takes it like Candy in this, and she realizes that, okay, this can be used as an art form, then yeah, you could put any spin you want on it. It can be feminist, feminist porn. It can be hardcore. It could be, I know we're going to be talking about feminists, but there's all sorts of other qualifiers or adjectives you want to put in front of that to describe what it is. So yeah, I mean, and to me, the art of film, if it's on film, you can put your own vision onto it, and therefore, yeah, if you are a feminist and you have feminist values, you can put that into your film and absolutely make it a feminist pornography film.
Season 2 of The Deuce talks about, if you can sum it up in like a single sentence, it would be a question. It's like, but what about the women? When you make arrests, it's the women who suffer. When you come down on the pimps, it's the women who suffer. When you try to push prostitution into porn and peep shows, it's the women who are affected. And I think through Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, she's asking the question, but what about the women? How do women feel about sex? How do women feel about, and we talked a little bit about this in season 1. I brought this up. How do they feel about being objectified? There's a conversation that took place on a previous podcast. Don't ask me to name which one. But I remember talking about, because I've done quite a few, and I know I brought this up then, and that is, what is feminism really? It's the belief or practice that females should be treated as often as possible as equals, which means choice. And choice is not always what you think it's going to be. Some people choose to be submissive. Some people choose to be stay-at-home moms. Some people choose to be asexual, like not date, not and be involved in romantic relationships. Some people choose to be platonic. Some people choose to be open, to sleep around. Some people choose to be part of orgies. Some people choose to be, surrounded by a dozen guys and blow every single one of them. Not kidding. That's a thing that happens outside of porn. Everyone go to fetlife.com. But I believe if you had to think about what feminism is, says two, mid 40-year-old men, it is the belief and practice that females should have as much choice as men. And I think there's a second, if Robert Winfrey were here, he would be falling all over himself and saying, hang on. And he would be like, but, not every choice should be treated equal. Not every choice should be judged equally. Okay, that's a conversation to be had on a case-by-case basis. I think there's also a conversation, to be had about, well, where does religious belief factor into all of this? Where do moral beliefs factor in all of this? Do we want to live, in a relativistic society where no judgment is made about people, and everyone just sort of, it's like everyone just has freedom of choice. And it's, you're only limited by who you're hurting, and if you're hurting anyone at all. And I think the problem is between the two of us, and through the guise of having a television review, it's way too big for us to really handle today, just kind of talking me and you. But I think it's important to throw it out there. And so getting back to Candy and Red Hot, which is what again, they take Little Red Riding Hood, they make Lori the lead. They end up recasting. In order to make this film, they have to go to the mob, and they have to get people from like LA to finance it, and they get James Franco's, not Vinny, but I think Frankie, to finance part of it. And then part of it is like they have to get like a famous porno actor to be the wolf, and he quits because it's like guerrilla fucking filming and shit, and he's like, like, this is way too much for me. So they end up
there was a rat on the stars.
It was the size of a cougar. And so they end up casting Larry, who's played by the Akin Bagagne. Let's keep going.
I wasn't even going to attempt it tonight.
And and so over the course of several episodes, they showed them filming and everything, and what Maggie Gyllenhaal says through a lot of these episodes as they're filming is, why are we focusing on the wolf? This is Red's story.
Yep.
And there's a great scene. I'm going to let you jump in a second. There's a great scene where they show Candy a Tex Avery cartoon.
Yep.
Where, and it's Tex Avery's take on Little Red Riding Hood. And it's like Red Hot Riding Hood, I think that's what it's called. It's a real cartoon. And, the wolf finally like shows up in like a midtown Manhattan, posh apartment. And that's where Grandma is. And Grandma is like hot to trot. And she like locks him in, and the wolf's like, oh, fucking no. And Grandma's like, like, here we go. And they're like, that's the angle. And so like the conclusion of Red Hot is, the wolf has been stalking Lori, through the duration of the film, taking time to, for sex. Of
course. Yes.
And then he shows up at the end, he has Red cornered, and in walks fucking Maggie Gyllenhaal as Grandma. And they double team him, and he's like, oh gosh, and the whole point of me bringing that up is it's a tacit admission that women are sexual creatures, and they like sex, and they can take power in a situation. I think I mentioned the phrase last time, topping from the bottom and all of that. And so it's like these two white women like tackle this, built a black guy, and just like, well, you belong to us now. And they even do like the really funny thing, like that Michael Jackson Thriller effect, where they pan to Lori, and she's got like wolf teeth.
Yep.
Like, see, inside of every one of us is a wolf on the prowl. Hey, Jesse, remember, hunters, what is it? Fucking hunters and praise from the BDSM test?
No, geez. Blocked most of that out.
Well, I'm gonna keep bringing up your trauma.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a very, very male-dominated industry in a very male-dominated time. This is a woman who's trying to find her place, and she's good at what she does. She knows she's good at what she does, but she also has and takes issue with the fact that, at every step, every corner she turns, she runs into some chauvinist or some guy who's at the top and is making all the decisions.
I'll write you a check. I believe in what you're doing. I think you're a talented, busy businesswoman who don't need no man, but
oh man,
only if you suck my dick while I'm doing it.
What?
Remember the quiet rage I talked about in the previous season? There it is again. There's Maggie Gyllenhaal doing the mental math that many women have done. It's like, well, I want the money.
Right.
I don't want to suck the guy's dick, but I want the money, and I don't want to feel bad about myself, but I really want to make this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she has to compromise a lot of what she is in order to, I guess, succeed at the long game, because At the end of this,
we all have to make sacrifices. I mean, like, look, in that particular case, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like just wanting to run into the screen right now and be like me too, you know, and all of that. Okay, but
right.
Let's take Me Too, as big as it is, and put it to the side for a second. How many of us make compromises? How many of us compromise ourselves? How many of us, I get asked all the time working in correctional mental health, like, how can you work in a correctional institution with law enforcement, as corrupt as law enforcement can be? And I'm like, well, painting with a broad brush, number one. Number two, as CM Punk said, you know, and I hate to draw that stupid reference, but CM Punk said, change comes from the inside, not from the outside. If you leave, you're not there to affect change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you leave, somebody else comes and they are probably going to be worse than you. It's like, what are you going to do? And I think that's a lot of the mental math that gets done is, if I'm here, at least I can help. If I'm here, at least I can try. Here, I can at least have influence. If I leave, I have none of that. And so sometimes you got to suck a dick, Jesse Starcher.
Well, yeah. And that's the brilliance of that scene, is that, just like you said, she's doing the mental math, what's probably going through her head, and it doesn't get said. Nothing gets said, but I'm sure that character is thinking at that time, you know, I've never been paid $10,000 for a blowjob.
Right.
You know, she's done this for a pittance in the past.
And taking the possibility of getting shoved out a window.
Right. And now she has the opportunity to take this money and turn it into something that she believes in. And that's how much she wants her dream to come true, you know, that, and it sucks. Yeah, you're right. On the front of it, it's,
bro, I didn't want to read fucking ads for Grammarly. Can you imagine how she felt?
Right.
I have something I have to say. I want to be with my friends, and I want to say it to the world. I'm important, and I am smart, and I have things I need to say. Well, read this fucking Grammarly ad so we can afford Spreaker. I would rather kill myself. You know? And I'll tell you, my girlfriend who's listened to a lot of our shows, like, hey, your friends are so smart. You guys are so funny. When you and Jesse together, you make magic. When you and Robert together, you make magic. Could you get somebody else to read your ads? You're terrible. I'm like, yeah, I was like, I didn't want to do it. That's why.
Oh,
when
man.
Sean, I got asked by recently, but Andrew was like, you know, there's like ads like mid roll through the podcast now. It's really jarring, and I'm like, got to pay the bills, son. And then
yeah, I know. I messaged you about it. I'm like, oh, wait a second, what the hell did this come from?
You're not the only one who's messaged me. And you know, when Sean approached me about it, I was like, yeah, do it. Like whatever makes us more money.
Yeah, we got to make the money. We got to be able to sustain and continue to provide good content. So
yeah,
that's the way it is. That's the way it rolls.
Talk about feminist porn. So Jesse, you want to take my hand and go down the hole? You want to take my hand and go down the hole?
Oh, please. I've always wanted to grab your hand and go into a hole.
I know you have. So we're talking about how the Deuce talks about the golden age of porn. What the fuck is the golden age of porn? Or porno chic, as I like to call it, refers to the 15-year period between 1969 and 1984. I was 8 in 1984 in commercial American pornography. Do you realize, like, my baby, toddler, and early adolescence was during the golden age of porn, Jesse?
That's great.
Does that not explain everything?
Put that on the resume.
I was born during the golden age of porn. Me and everybody else born in 1976. In which sexually explicit films experienced positive attention from mainstream cinemas, movie critics, and the general public. The American period, which had subsequently spread internationally, and that began before the legalization of pornography in Denmark on July 1st, 1969, started on June 12th, 1969, and the theatrical release of the film Blue Movie. Oh, Jesse, we totally need to do a commentary for Blue Movie now.
Blue Movie.
Boy. Not to be confused with Blue Moon. Directed by Andy Warhol. And somewhat later, with the release of the 1970 film Mona, produced by Bill Osco. These films were the first adult erotic films depicting explicit sex to receive wide theatrical release in the U.S. Both influenced the making of films such as 1972's Deep Throat, starring Linda Lovelace, you know, your grandpa's favorite, and directed by Gerard Damiano. Behind the Green Door. Take a drink every time Wasserman says Behind the Green Door in this season, by the way. You won't have alcohol poisoning, but you'll be tipsy. Starring Marilyn Chambers and directed by the Mitchell brothers. 1973 is The Devil and Miss Jones, also by Damiano, and 1976 is The Opening of Misty Beethoven by Radley Metzger.
That's a good name.
I'm just now like, wait, what? According to Warhol, Blue Movie was a major influence in the making of The Last Tango in Paris, an internationally controversial erotic drama film starring Marlon Brando, and released a few years later after Blue Movie was shown in theaters. And I won't continue to read this. I'll read a long wiki, but I do want to share this with you. The Golden Age was a period of interactions between pornography and the contemporaneous second wave of feminism. The fuck is the second wave feminism? Second wave feminism was a period of feminist activity that began in the early 1960s and lasted roughly 2 decades before ushering the third wave, because 3 comes after 2, beginning in the early 1990s. It took place throughout the Western world and was aimed to increase the equality for women by building on previous feminist gains in the 19th and early 20th century. Whereas first wave feminism focused mainly on voting, suffrage, and overturning legal obstacles to gender equality, like voting rights and property rights, second wave feminism broadened the debate to include a wider range of issues: sexuality, family, domesticity, the workplace, reproductive rights, de facto inequalities in office, and official legal inequalities. It was a movement that was focused on critiquing patriarchal or male, like from the Barbie movie, or male-dominated institutions and cultural practices throughout society. Second wave feminism also drew attention to the issues of domestic violence, marital rape. It created rape crisis centers and women's shelters and brought about changes in custody laws and divorce law, which are now being pushed back because they've gone wildly out of control. Feminist-owned bookstores, credit unions, and restaurants were among the key meeting spaces for economic engines of the movement. So back to feminist views on pornography, which is the central topic of what we're talking about here. So anyway, radical and cultural feminists, along with religious and conservative groups, attacked pornography, while other feminists were pro-pornography, such as Camille Piglia, who defined what came to be known as sex-positive feminism in her work Sexual Persona. Paglia and other sex-positive or pro-pornography feminists accepted porn as the sexual revolution with its libertarian sexual themes, such as exploring bisexuality and swinging, like what Jesse and his wife does. For freeform government and people fucking listening to this, like why do you let him say these things about you?
I'm just hoping he makes this point and moves on. That's
all. The endorsement of female critics was essential for the credibility of the brief ever of Porno Chic. And then there's like a whole quickie here on just feminist views on pornography, which range from total condemnation of the medium as an inherent form of violence against women, which I think is definitely one take, to an embracing of some forms as a medium of feminist expression. Let me tell you, and without having to read this any further, we can open this up for brief conversation and then move on to the other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to Jesse's show and tell. And that is, I think it's a non-starter to think that women don't have opinions and views and fantasies about sex. Have you been to a fucking bookstore lately?
Right. Right. Fabio exists because of that.
Yeah. If you talk to a girl, if you've been on Book Talk, Book TikTok, what are half of the women reading? If they're not, women are into 2 things, especially white women. They're into murder mysteries.
Murder.
Yep. Yeah, they're into documentaries about watching men get murdered. I don't know why. And they're into sexual fantasy. I don't want to go off on a wild tangent here, especially in the mood that I'm in tonight. But let me tell you about how women spend an awful lot of time thinking about how they don't get the right kind of attention that they think they deserve. And so they dive into fantasy to find stories about women receiving the kind of attention they think they deserve.
That's what they fantasize about, is getting attention.
Have you met a girl recently?
Oh goodness. It's so funny because I tease my wife. I always call her Princess Mindy because you gotta take care of her. You gotta pay attention.
Is that before she starts chasing you with the rolling pin?
Oh, it's definitely classic.
You're trying to talk. I'm going to shut up. That was my last joke. Go ahead.
Classic 50s cartoon is Mindy chasing me around with a pan and a fucking rolling pin in her hand. But yeah, I tease her a lot because I call her, Princess Mindy, and there's a big running joke every once in a while because I'll come down here, do a podcast, or after sitting 3 hours and watching Everybody Loves Raymond with her, I'll be like, all right, I got to go downstairs, I got to work on some stuff, and I'll be like, you're not going to feel neglected, are you? And she would immediately, oh, I'm so neglected. It's, of course, she's joking around, but it's funny because that is something that I tease her about a lot. And yes, she wants and deserves all the attention that she gets. But go ahead and continue.
So many things. Like, this is where the tumor builds. I've spent so many hours both lauding and bashing my ex. I don't even want to start into that, but she not being the world's greatest example, but less mentally ill women also have fantasies about sex. They have fantasies, and again, they have fantasies about sexual attention. Like, let's not even talk about pornography. Talk about Twilight. Talk about this now going back into sex. 50 Shades of Grey. What was 50 Shades of Grey about besides beating a woman's ass? It was about trauma, actually, but let's put that aside. It was also about this woman not feeling like a square peg in a round hole of society, and this guy giving her attention she didn't think she was worthy of and making her feel special. Now take sort of a broad generalization about women or a generalization about broads and apply that to the Deuce. What Candy is saying, what David Pelicanos and David Simon are saying through that character is, hey, women think about this stuff a lot more often than they're given credit for, a lot more often than society accepts them talking about openly. What if we told a pornographic story from their point of view? What if we delved into what women want in porno? Because that's a big debate that happens between her and Harvey through a lot of filming of Red Hot, is she wants it to go this way. And Harvey's like, this is something for men to jerk off to. Like, why?
Right.
Why would you do this? And she's like, but what if it's not? What if we're just telling this very erotic story from a woman's point of view? And Harvey's reaction to that is, what man watches that? Yeah. And then he's totally turned around by the end of the season when he finally sees the rough cut of Red Hot. And he's like, holy shit, you got something here. And then he said the one line, I'll let you jump in. He was like, this is a movie men will take dates to.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about this. I mean, Harvey has been, I don't know, he's conditioned himself to think that there's one audience for pornography. And what he doesn't understand is that if you could, at some point, if you could figure out a way to unlock, there are two people, there is a man and a woman, but if I'm just,
that is wildly prejudiced, by the way.
I don't, this is the 70s.
Okay. Back when there were only two genders. Okay, I'm with you now.
Right,
sorry.
right. I don't want to
impose 20 year in our Lord 2023 values on the 70s. Sorry, go ahead.
So there's a whole subsection of an audience that he just is not even acknowledging and trying to even provide content for.
Right. Yeah, women don't count. They don't matter. They don't jerk off.
Right, because that's that is crazy. Who would think that they would actually do something like that?
Right.
So it takes Candy coming in there and saying, there is, we are people too. We also have sexual urges. We also want to find that satisfaction in watching. We just look at it a little bit differently. And I think that's what is great about this, is it's kind of like this pioneer walking into this unknown section of film where she's trying to create this film that is erotic enough to also bring some type of pleasure to women of all people. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy how Harvey looks at this, and initially, and just like you said, by the end of the season, he realizes that, wow, there is something here. Not only that, it's going to, when you're cutting out half of the population in providing this service, I guess you would say, it's also half. You're going to double your money if you could figure out a way of bringing them into it.
I draw a lot of references from pro wrestling. I'm a big fan of it. I've been watching it for almost the entirety of my life, and I think wrestling has provided a lot of models for human behavior. And what I mean by that is, when wrestling only focused on a niche audience, it was regional, it was self-contained, it was static, and much to Jim Cornette's delight and eventual chagrin, there was only so much you could do with it. It wasn't going to go very far. You had the occasional event that made a decent amount of money, but for the most part, it was sort of, local carny circus entertainment. And then Vince McMahon's like, but what if we decided it's not a niche product anymore? What if it's family entertainment? What if we're reaching men, women, children of all income levels?
All ages, all income level. Yeah.
What if we tell a story that's relatable by every human on earth? Then what?
Yeah.
And they did. And now it's a virus that's killing the planet. No. It's and now wrestling is bigger than it's ever been. But, and so I think, is porn ever going to be as big as pro wrestling? Oh God, no. Not there's never
wait just a second.
Well, hang on. Raymond James Stadium is not hosting Pornomania.
Okay, all right, that
today.
I can see. Yes. Live events are a little bit restrictive.
Yeah, there's something about a cabaret license. I want to talk about activism. I am a social worker by profession. I was thinking about this on the way and how I wanted to handle this conversation tonight. And I've been recently I'm back into dating heavily again. And I've been talking to some new women. And, for years, you guys have heard me tell the story about how I worked in porn. And everyone has heard me tell the story about how Christy Miss, glazed in semen, wanted to give me a hug. And, it's a funny story that Radulich tells because he tells it so funny. And I've talked about getting hit in the head and spliced into a blowjob video, and all of that. I've told those stories. I tell them because I'm not either proud nor ashamed of my time in that industry. It was a time in my life when I was young and I was looking for experiences, and there were things I wanted to do, and I had no children, and I had all the years of my life ahead of me. So I could take the time to do punk rock kind of things and go off beaten paths and try on different hats, as it were. And so, yeah, I worked for Extreme Associates, which was the porno company owned by Rob Zakari, who went to prison for making porn. But what I don't tell, because it's not nearly as funny a story, but I do share with some of the women that I've been talking to recently, is why I transitioned from working from Extreme Associates into becoming a social worker. And because this isn't nearly as funny. So I would, I've always been, I don't know if you know this about me, Jesse, working with me all these years, because sure, the dick jokes and, the quasi-racist humor, but do you really know the man, the Mark Radulich?
Radulich.
I am not just a talker, though you wouldn't know by this podcast. I am a listener. I listen to people's stories. For whatever the reasons are, I give off the vibe of, you seem safe to talk to, kind of like Santa Claus. I sit on your lap and I tell you about my trauma. It's weird when a guy doesn't. Oh, maybe not anymore. In the year of our Lord 2023. Anyone can sit on my lap. I don't care. And they read me off their list of traumas, and they tell me their stories. And then people have always gravitated towards me and felt safe doing so. I mean, fuck, I've gotten you, Robert, Evan, Alexis, tell me all kinds of shit on these shows. And I just came here to talk about Star Wars. I have a talent for it. So working for a pornography company, women talk to me. I was unassuming, I was available, and I wasn't preying on them. So they would tell me things, and They all had a story, and it was all trauma. It was trauma all day long. And I got to thinking, I wonder if they had access to the kind of help that I know exists when they were kids, would they make the same choices that they have that landed them in Rob Zakari's fuck factory? And that got me thinking, well, what if I, with my naivete, change career paths from wanting to make movies and working in pro wrestling and then finding himself in the depths of porn? What if I instead became a social worker and tried to help kids better their lives, get out of bad environments, and hopefully make better choices? So yeah, I transitioned from porn to social work because I wanted to help kids not do porn. Pull them off the pole. That was the goal. Didn't quite work out that way, though. I did
put it on a shirt, Mindy. Pull him off the pole.
That was my little bit of activism back in the day. I have since been shown the horrors of the world and abandoned it, but I still believe in advocacy. I still believe in the practice of social work, linking people to services that are out there, giving people a hand that are on their ass and need the help. I still believe in all of that. As much as I often say I should have been an accountant because social workers make dog shit money, I still often believe in educated, liberal-minded people need to be in the streets helping those in need. I think about season 3 of The Wire, and after Colvin shows the bunny, the pastor, Hamsterdam, he's like, what the fuck have you done here?
Right.
He's like, you created an open air drug market.
That's great.
And like not thinking about the social implications of what he had done. He was just, and this should be familiar because this is what was happening in the Deuce. They're not trying to stop it. They realize they can't. So they're just trying to push it away from people who want to live comfortably and spend money and just live their lives. In the case of the Deuce, it was, we want to revitalize Midtown Manhattan and not have it be, a seedy level of Dante's Inferno. In Baltimore and The Wire, it was, we want to push these away from the residential areas because people are fleeing the city like Jacob. And so season 2 has Abby, who is now running the hi-hat, and then we have the return of Dorothy, who was one of the girls who escaped. I think it was either Rodney or Cece. I don't remember which one. It had to have been Cece. And they're working with somebody who's in the community service, social work milieu, and they are down in the dirt, in the gutter, like getting girls like testing, getting the medical services. They're negotiating between tenants and pimps. And there's a lot of good conversation that takes place in season 2 of The Deuce between the Abby, Dorothy, the other social work guy, and the pimps. And it's going something along the lines of what's doable. And there's always that one character, and it happens to be Dorothy, who dies for her sins in this season. Spoilers. There's always like, the practical person, the pragmatic person. What's doable? What is conceivable? How can we conceivably affect change? And then there's always the one person going, no, burn everything to the ground, flip the tables over, like Jesus, just flip everything, fight the revolution. You're like, easy, calm the fuck down. People got to live here. Right. And it's that's the dramatic tension in that subplot of this season. It's them trying to figure out what can we do. And then it goes back to the same question that we dealt with in the first 40 minutes of this conversation. What about the women? What do they need? What do they want? What can we give them that's actually going to help them?
Right. Yeah, what you see in this season, a lot of like, it's not the pimps who are getting much of the persecution here when the law steps in. It's the women who end up getting a lot of, they feel the consequences of what's happening when the police are called. So yeah, there's a lot of action taken to try and alleviate the the burden. Even though they've chosen this line of work, I mean, a lot of what they have to face when it comes to like the police showing up is, it affects the women more than it does the men. So yeah, just like you said, they're out there, and this feels kind of grassroots. I don't remember the guy's name either. I have a picture of him when we go through the slideshow, but it felt like he came in here, he got along with Abby, and they were like, let's do something. Dorothy comes back, who, I didn't see her coming back. But yeah, they want to try and do something to make it they want to make it at least.
It's a harm reduction model. We can't.
Yes, that's great. That's a great way.
We can't get the women to stop prostituting. Some of them, they can't get away from their pimps. They don't want to. They don't have a pliable skill. They don't. Whatever this situation is, there's a tacit acknowledgement of we can't get them to stop, but we can stop the spread of diseases. We can get them free access to free medical care. Like there's a great little bit there in one of the episodes where they go see a doctor. They go to his home, and he was like, I don't want him to come to my clinic. Doctors take advantage of the girls, which is gross, by the way. Being serious for a moment. And so they set up in the bar. Like they set up in the hi-hat, and they have, and it's like, and the girls don't even believe it's real. They're like, really? Like, this is set up. Am I walking into an orgy again? Like it's a lot of that. And so like, no, it's literally like, we know we can't stop you, but we can certainly make things a little bit better. I love the negotiation between the tenants and the pimps, because while the pimps are a lot of bravado, there's a great line at the end in the season finale between Darlene and Larry. And because by this point, Larry has abandoned pimping for the most part, and he is just strictly acting. He's in Red Hot. He has been doing other porn. That's his arc in the season. And he's running lines with Darlene, and Darlene is at this point leaving him. She's gotten a job at a clothing store, and she's moving on. And she was like, Larry, you should have never let me see you act, because Pip is a role, as is whore, and I played mine and you played yours, but then you let me in the pretend, and the whole thing faded. The whole fantasy, back to women's fantasy, the whole fantasy of you're my pimp, I'm your whore. Nope. I now see just Larry, and Larry is thoroughly uninteresting, so I must go.
Yeah.
I must go find another boy to pay attention to me. That's fantastic. So anyway, so going back to this other thing, it's like the pimps can't, like, they can't be the one pimp that talks to the cops kind of character. They can't be like, I have this. Let me be a union negotiator here and present to you our issues. No, everyone has to act like a fucking asshole, because if they don't, they get boy, a pimp's entire career rests on his menace.
Oh yeah.
His menace and his charisma. They're like, again, pro wrestling. If you are not an effective heel, no one buys you, and no one comes to see you wrestle. No one comes to see you lose. If you're, which when we get, I'm waiting for the slideshow, but when we talk about CC, but so they're trying to talk to them, and they're all like, fuck you, whore, and all this other stuff. And then they're like, okay, but we really need to be here. Like, we can't be complete dicks about this. Like, we have to find that middle ground of project an air of confidence and menace, be decent humans.
Be a decent, yeah.
And then there's the tenants, like, what we'd really like is for you to be nuked from orbit just to be certain. However, we've been waiting for the cops to do that for decades now, and it hasn't happened. So I suppose a midway point of maybe don't harass us all in the daytime hours, making it unbearable to get our day-to-day shit done, would be a nice compromise. And I loved all that, because that's real life for me. It's a conversation I have to have with patients in the correctional institution all the time. What is your reality right now? What can you conceivably do within the environment you're in, with the information that you have, without making your situation worse? That's a lot of the mental math that takes place.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. You just want to see as we watch this, the whole menace versus charm thing, you nailed that right on the head, because you don't want to see the women hurt for sure. And there is a lot of tension, especially with Cece, just like you said, where you're waiting for him to, like, I don't know, he's going to snap and kill somebody. He's going to kill one of his girls. And
the scenes between him and Lori, until he meets his demise, every scene with Lori, she looks like she's just short of getting killed.
Right. He is going to hurt her bad. But yeah, man, I'm ready for the slideshow. Unless you got something else up your sleeve.
No, Daddy. Whip it out and show me your slideshow.
All right, yeah, let's get into some of these characters here. Let me go ahead. I want to present
your slideshow. You're gonna unzip
I will.
and present your slideshow.
Yes, indeed. All right, so we'll quickly go through here. We won't take very long. We know most of these characters. If you hung out with us in season 1, you know Vincent. So Vincent, I mean, what are the big
this poor motherfucker?
Vinny's arc this season. I mean, he's still running the bar. He's still got mob ties. Still running after his brother Frankie, trying to keep track of him.
He's opened essentially like Studio 54.
Yeah, something, the 366, I think is what it's called. So he's got a lot of irons in the fire, if you will, and he just wants out. And I think, to me, his biggest arc, or at least the thing that stuck out to me this season, is it seems like he just wants to get away. He wants to leave. He wants to take Abby with him and be done with it. That scene or that episode where he goes to Vermont. Go ahead.
2 things about that. He was okay until Abby shamed him. When Abby, because here's the problem with Vince. He's being pulled in a bunch of different directions. He's got Bobby pulling him one direction, the mob pulling him in another, Frankie pulling him in another, and then there's finally Abby. And he admires Abby. He looks up to her, and Abby is fine with Vince, but Abby also, and he says this in the Vermont episode, Abby sees right, or in the episode where he goes to visit his ex-wife, she sees right through him. She also, and I mentioned before about, I must find a more interesting fellow. Boy, is that Abby all day long. Abby's like, I'm fine banging you hunk of meat, you. But I need intellectual stimulus other places. Well, my needs are not entirely met by you, sir. I must find them outside of this home, is Abby's whole thing. And, and Vince is like, I was happy being a bar owner. All I wanted to be was, he says this to the ex-wife, and I think this really rings true. And actually, it really resonated with me. I want a house with a wife and kids and a picket fence and a dog and a cat and a goldfish, but I also want to be the big man on campus. I want to be in the center of the party and have the party. He doesn't want to be the life of the party, but he wants to be in the center of the party and have the party around him. So, like, he wants to be the big club owner, which he's become, but he also wants to go home and have the family life, and he is struggling with how to make that happen. And then he's looking at Abby going, well, you're my woman now. I suppose I should have that with you. And she's like, that's about the last fucking thing I want.
Yeah. That's why she came to New York in the first place.
Right.
And she did not
left college.
Right. Yeah. She didn't want to have anything to do with settling down and actually living some type of boring life. She wanted to be involved in New York City and its nightlife, I think.
Right. She's a social worker at heart. She's an activist. So it's like, she's an artist, she's an activist, she's a thinker, she's a progressive, she's a liberal, she's all of these things, and she's a bohemian. And she's, I think, a little bored by Vince, but that's not what's important for their story. What's important is when she can't figure out why he's making decisions that he is, why he's involved in what he's doing. Like when she was like, I want to ban Bobby from the bar. And he's like, I can't, he's family. And, and then finally he's like, I'm in the mob. I take envelopes from the mob. I take envelopes from the peep shows. I take envelopes from the sex parlors. This bar is back that you run where you get to promote your bands and shit. That is all mob money. And the club, that is all mob money. And I just quietly do it. And, again, much like D'Angelo, I couldn't remember from last podcast, D'Angelo from The Wire, Larry Gilliard, who plays Sergeant Austin in this series, he's another one who I'm doing it and doing it and doing it until I can't breathe anymore, and then I just let it kill me. I try to get away. And I think when he didn't have to be confronted with the shame of it all, especially the sex parlors, and the peep shows, he was fine with it. But the minute she was like, "You pervert, you ne'er-do-well, you unscrupulous person," and he lost her respect, that's when he was like, "Get me the fuck out of here." And Tommy Longo is like, "No, sir. you took the mob's money. You're in it for life. The only way out of here is the only way you leave is with a bullet in the back of your fucking head." I don't know what you thought. We're not a charity organization.
Mm-hmm.
I love that conversation between him and Tommy Longo, by the way, because he's like, "Is your woman breaking your balls at home? What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Yeah. We talked about the two, so let's move on to Frankie here. Frankie having quite an interesting season. He wins the laundromat and the poker game, and then realizes that he is not a laundromat manager. He is not. What other fun things happen with Frankie here? I mean, he's still obviously gambling.
He starts off robbing the peep show so he can go gamble.
Right. He's taking a bunch of quarters from the peep show. He's trying to manage that, which is pretty funny. When the guy gets his arm stuck in the window. Watching him just try to become responsible, because he's not really that at all. But then all of a sudden, like, responsibility is kind of foisted upon him, and he's like, okay, well, now I've got to. He ends up marrying that burlesque dancer. So it's interesting that he tries to become responsible, albeit he goes about it the wrong way. He ends up robbing. Remember when he robs the van carrying all the shoes, and all they're filled with two left feet in each box.
Right.
Which is good. But yeah, there's Frankie for you. Again, I have no problem at any point throughout this series. I've had zero problem considering James Franco as two different characters in this show. That's some great acting.
Yeah, no, look, Robert, in his infinite wisdom and personality, quipped that David Simon has been in a creative rut for 20 years, and Robert's Robert. I'm not gonna bash him for that, but what Robert either does not care about or fails to realize, or realizes it and still doesn't care, is that a lot of the strength of David Simon's writing, David Simon's presentation of shows, is in characters. And while Frankie doesn't say a lot, not a lot is said through Frankie. He is a wildly interesting character. And James Franco, who often gets tarred and feathered with having been Harry Osborn in the Spider-Man movies, and people going, less than thrilling performance, or The Wizard of Oz and Oz the Great and Powerful, yuck. I say this a lot. I've been saying it a lot on Damn You Hollywood. Great actors are not always given the best material, and sometimes they're judged by the material they're in, and everyone thinks, well, that's just your performance level, and it's not. James Franco, as demonstrated in this show, is an outstanding actor.
Oh, yeah. There is, my goodness, just watching the differences between Frankie and Vinny. Twins, but my gosh, you can tell one was definitely brought up different, or I shouldn't say brought up different, but he was brought into this life and had a different role compared to the younger brother. I always get the sense that Frankie's the younger one, just because of how brash he is. But anyway, yeah, really, really great acting on the part of James Franco here.
Yep.
So moving on, let's take a look at, we'll talk about Candy. We talked mostly about her role in the first half of this show.
Can I just say Maggie Gyllenhaal? I've said it of Meryl Streep as of late. Maggie Gyllenhaal, one of the great actors of our age. She's phenomenal. I can't say a bad thing about her. She's easily the best performer in this entire piece. Yeah. She's the best player. She's the best actress. I can see why she wanted to do the Deuce. If she had a meeting with David Simon and George Pelecanos, and they were like, we have you in mind for this, as this sort of feminist porn. You start off as a prostitute, get beat up. You have this kid at home that you're trying to raise, and you have these judgmental parents, and you're existing as at this flashpoint between the rise of porn and the intersection of art, and you're right at the center of it. And if you've ever been an actor, and I know you have, Jesse, it's what you went to school for.
Exactly. You actually do not know about the couple plays that I did for the Mid-Ohio Valley Junior Players down here in Marietta, Ohio. One day I'll send you the tape.
You have the soul of a player. I always knew that about you. It's a role of a lifetime. How often as an actor do you get to do what she gets to do in this show? And it's just like, oh, you're a filthy prostitute or pornographer. But it's like, you got to see her in some of these scenes,
No.
Not quite, Where's Wallace, but that scene at the end of the finale where she goes to pick up her son after Red Hot has debuted, and the kids at school found out and, probably said some you're not shown it, but it's inferred that the kid went to school, some shit got said about his whore mother, and he took a beating for it.
Right.
And Maggie Gyllenhaal, who you're sympathetic with through most of this show, sucking a guy's dick for seed money, and the making really good points about art and pornography to Harvey, and just one thing after another, and like you so sympathize with her trying to get her vision across, and everything that she tries to do, and it's so punk rock, and it's so guerrilla, and then she's got all of this like fame and notoriety behind her, and even when she goes on the talk show and she is the butt of the jokes, because here we are in the year of our Lord 2023 having a fairly intellectual discussion about pornography and art, but back in 1978, on a talk show for Mom and Joe Lunchpail, there's no fucking way it was even considered. And so she was made fun of for it, and the grace and dignity for which she doesn't blow up, she doesn't pull a Joker and shoot the guy, or anything like that. She just kind of laughs it off too. And then when they bring it up the next day, she's like, no, I was the butt of the jokes, but you know what? I'm going to take all the fame and all the notoriety and all the money, and I'm going to invest in more of my vision being told, my story being told. Right. And it's like, wow, that's really great. And then she takes all of that bravado and all of that self-esteem and all of that, newfound energy, and goes to pick up her kid. And the dad's like, no, I have no respect for you. I don't want you here. You put your son in danger and you shame this family. And she's like, fuck you, Dad, and slams the door in her face. And suddenly the majesty of performance when you have all of that going into a scene and lose it all, like money at a card game. It just like that door shuts and she sits down and she tries again and they don't answer. And she just sits on the steps and weeps. And I'm like, ugh. Why do I talk about movies and podcasts? Because when I see performance like that, it moves my soul.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that scene up, because that was kind of what I was going to talk about as well. The defining moment of this season for me with her. I mean, and it also touches on a lot of things in regards to society's acceptance of what she's doing. She's pushing boundaries in the porn industry, folks. We're not just talking about regular society. She's launched past that, because now she has to go to her family, and this is a kind of a tough thing, especially for back then. But even now, like if one of your family members came to you, and let's say it was, a son or a daughter, and said, well, hey, I'm in porn. What kind of a mindset are you going to have? Are you going to be open-minded? Now, I know as for you, I imagine you are.
The day one of my kids says, like, I started an OnlyFans. Like, you don't think that day is fucking coming?
Yeah, you're right, dude. Right. So it's one of those things where it's like, where and how can this family deal with this now that it's out in the open? She went onto a talk show to talk about this. So her name and her face are going to be now really well known.
Right.
And it's going to affect her family and her relationships with her family. She's very open with her mom. I don't even know if we've ever seen the dad up until that scene. Like, nope. I know he was a presence because she wanted to get the hell out of there in season 1 before her dad came home. So you know that her relationship with her father is not good at all. And then to have this put on top of it, he probably feels like I can't go to work now. And that just boils over and makes things even tougher.
Remember I was talking about the corner, and there were my 3 mental breakdowns during that show. And I was talking about you wanting the validity, what's the word I'm looking for? The acceptance of those who love you, those who claim to love you, and just feeling like you never get it. You never get validation. That's what I was looking for. You never get the validation you're looking for. And the world can hold you up on their shoulders and tell you you're a champion and throw prizes and belts and money at you and tell you you're wonderful. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're the toast of the town. You're the queen of the prom." And then you go to your father and like, "Well, do you love me now?" And the answer is no. You're still a whore. Nothing has changed.
Yep.
Nothing has changed. You're still a 2-bit tramp that we have to raise your son, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't fucking win. Like, people wonder like why I talk about this stuff, because I relate so much to how I've lived my life. You try so hard to get the people who say they love you to give you that validation, and nope.
Slam the door in front of you.
We've all, at one point or another, God knows I have, been Maggie Gyllenhaal sitting on the stairs in the rain, weeping. Why doesn't anyone value me?
Yeah.
I've done so much good. I've made so many people happy. Why does that not matter?
Tough. It's really tough. All right. I put Harvey's picture on here. I mean, we talked about most of what he's doing throughout this season.
The only thing I have to add to this is his doing a thing on the VCR. Because as men living in 2023 who grew up with the VCR, we know exactly. He has just brought the printing press to the Bible. Okay. We not about a month or two ago talked about how AI has fucking changed everything. That was AI of its time.
Yeah,
that was an invention that was about to change the world in ways nobody saw coming. Literally.
Yeah. He sits down and he's like, "I got a prototype here." Mm-hmm. He pulls out the VHS cassette and you're like, "Oh boy."
Do you remember that VCR? Do you remember like those giant,
that old school ass VCR? Yeah.
Yeah. They were 1,000 pounds. If you threw it at somebody, you might kill them.
Yeah, it's interesting because when 2020 rolled around and I'm sitting at the house because everybody gets sent home when the pandemic hit.
Not everybody. Some of us had to go to work with cancer.
You're a little more essential than I am, apparently. So I'm looking and I'm scrambling for VCRs because you cannot find them unless you had one. And I end up talking to my mom, and my mom's like, "Yeah, I think we got one in the garage." And it legitimately was like maybe 2 or 3 years older than the one Harvey had. I mean, it's a big ass VCR. Yeah. Set it down here on my desk, and I'm like,
when you press the eject button and the tape thing, the tape holder like came up, it sounded like a rocket going into space. I thought Lars Ulrich from Metallica was drumming in my house.
Oh, it's great. All right, let's spend a few minutes. Just a few.
The villain of the Deuce, the only one I can totally say has no redeeming value at all and got what was coming to him.
Yeah, you're right. So we have Lori here, who's become a rather prominent porn star, one of the most sought after names for some films, and CC her pimp.
Do you remember, Jesse Starcher? Do you remember when we were talking about the Wu-Tang Clan show and Ghostface Killer and his girl? And his girl occasionally having to think to herself, "You are too stupid for this conversation. Please shut up." And having to push Ghostface Killer in the proverbial pool because he was too strong for the sugar. Do you remember, Jesse Starcher?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The great thing about Lori and Cece in this is how many times Cece said he was too strong for the sugar, and Lori had to push him in the pool.
Yeah.
like wait, we're on a film set here. You animal, please shut up. You're gonna ruin it for everybody. You're gonna literally set this industry back 20 years.
Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. And he was, that was one of the great kind of like dichotomies that happened in this season, is watching Lori, who she was brought into the sex trade by pimping, and then of course became a film star, and now has to deal with him because he is her pimp, and no matter what, and of course he'll let her know it whenever he can, that he is always going to be there.
Jesse.
He belongs to her. Or try that again. She belongs to him. I'm sitting.
Sit on my lap. Let me teach you something. The term is suitcase pimp.
Suitcase pimp.
You could be one.
Okay.
Find a girl who fancies herself a porn actress in the year of our Lord 2023, and she doesn't know what an OnlyFans is or the internet. You can drive her to gigs. You can have her clothing in a bag. You can just essentially be her handmaiden, her handler, her associate.
Okay.
And the term for that is suitcase pimp. You get the girl to set, you have all the things she needs to be successful, and you sit down and you shut the fuck up and collect the money. That's it. That's your whole job. And when it's all said and done, you collect your girl, you daintily put her in the car, and you go to the next thing. Suitcase pimp. And Cece couldn't do it because Cece, narcissist that he is, could not let Lori be the star. Cece has to be the star. It's more than about pimping, because there were many kinds of pimps. I mean, from Larry to Gentle Richie to the Hispanic guy to, Reggie Love. And there's a certain degree of ego that's involved in all of that. But they all handled things differently. Larry was perfectly okay with the girls being front and center. Cece, pimping for him was about, I need unadulterated praise and attention and love. And if I don't get it, I'm going to throw you out a fucking window.
Oh, it was control. That was what was making. As soon as he started. Well, yeah. Yeah, as soon as he started to lose like a little bit of control, that's where I was like, every time he was on screen, I was just waiting for him to snap, because you can see that Lori is, she's starting to kind of like question him. I think the first episode, there's a situation where she's like, oh yeah, we can stop by so and so, and Cece's like, no, we can't, or something along those lines. And as soon as she says, well, no, we can stop by there on the way, and he's like, are you contradicting me now? It's like she's not trying to do anything other than help the situation, but because she just said something opposite, or at least different than what he thought, it set him off immediately.
Let's stop the podcast and go on TikTok for 2 minutes, because then you'll get 500 narcissism TikToks. And one of the things they talk about that is common among narcissists is how fragile their ego is. When they are, when their veil is pierced, when they're contradicted, when they are shown up, when anyone has attention but them, they unfucking ravel and they lash out, and they do everything Cece does in this show. There's a whole thing where the warden from Orange is the New Black, that's, I don't know if you knew who that was. The chick that plays the agent in the show, she's the warden from Orange is the New Black.
Oh, okay. All right.
You haven't watched that yet?
No, the wife has. The wife watched all of that, but I have not.
Okay. When she wasn't chasing you with a rolling pin?
Pay attention to me.
That was your podcast tonight. It was great, Mindy. Mark was very respectful.
Not talk about you at all.
Don't go on YouTube. Here, have some more TikTok. Anyway, like feeding her TikTok rapes. Anywho, so she's like, yeah, let's get you to LA. Let's get you on press tours. Let's do this. Let's do that. And and Laurie's like, well, what about Cece? And she's like, what about him? He's not even suitcase pimping here. He's genuinely hurting your career. Like, you're an idiot. Why are you with him? You could be, on Mars by now if you just fucking drop the dead weight, which narcissists, that's what they are, dead weight. They are all about keeping you down and isolated, and stop me if you've heard this before in the show. Keeping you down, keeping you isolated, telling you you're no good. And when you reject it in any way, shape, or form, will attack you verbally, physically, spiritually, mentally, will do all the things so that you don't ever rise up again. And when she finally does make the decision to, I think the mob ends up like buying her contract.
Right.
And now, they essentially buy Cece out of his pimping her. They human trafficked her, essentially, is what happened here.
Right.
They paid Cece to stop pimping her, essentially. And Cece, willing to take the money, but is wounded by the event, fucking brutalizes her under the veil of like sexual intimacy.
That whole bar scene before that even happens,
where
he's like, yeah, I'm gonna treat you right tonight. And she can see it. She knows what's going to happen.
Treat you right. He's like, I'm gonna fuck you like you've never been fucked before. And I wanted to jump out a window.
Right. I'm like, get up and run, girl. Why haven't you got up and ran yet?
I was listening to us talk about The Last Unicorn today because I put that podcast up. It was like that kind of a moment. I was like, I'm going to fuck you like you've never been fucked before. Unicorn! Like, oh, God.
Just get out.
Run like hell.
But she doesn't. She sits there and there is a lot of trauma, clearly, that she has suffered. After she even gets bought out, she won't go on like press tours or something like that because she's absolutely petrified that he is going to show up and do something to her. And that really, really messed with her head. And that whole control relationship that Cece had with
married, her. But remember when I said before about like marital rape? I was talking to somebody last night and this came up actually. Whatever your domestic partnership or relationship, doesn't even have to be a domestic partnership, has to, is whatever relationship you're having with somebody, unless you've previously agreed to a consensual, non-consensual scene event, that aside, which is its own fucking topic, when you say no, that's the end of the conversation. And when you say no and the person forces you to do it anyway, or you're not really into it, but you're too fucking afraid you're going to die to stop him, that all falls under the heading of not marital, but for the sake of conversation and ease of language, marital rape. She did not want to be there, Joe. She did not want to be in that room with Cece, but she is all of 10 pounds and 3 feet tall. And this man looks like... Every time Cece's on screen, I kept getting this vision of like Jaws. Like, like you can see the fin and you feel the oh shit. And you're just like, well, is he just going to swim or is he going to swallow his whole? What's going to happen here? I'm scared to death. And all I see is a fin. Anytime Cece walked in a room. And it's just like, so imagine how she feels, because it's like, you don't have to say no for it to be rape. You just have to not want to be there and not want it to happen. And anyone listening to me say that's going, okay, but how would he know? It didn't matter if he knew or not.
No, he didn't care. He did not. And
because she was not a person in that scene.
It's a brilliant, again, it's a brilliant scene. The bar scene, in my opinion, is brilliant because it just shows you the hold that he has over her, because she's in a public place. She's asked by Abby, like twice, are you okay? Everything okay? I mean, she could have got up and said, no, everything's okay, and walk out. And that'd probably be the last time she saw Cece.
I was going to say she could have gonzoed and just go onto the street and throw herself in front of a fucking cab. Like, I'm injured. But because of that hold that he had on her, Cece was an interesting character. We play him off as like this real narcissist, which he is. But the thing is that I really got some feelings by just the way he was being portrayed, that he did care
for Lori. Like he had some feelings for Lori. And although it was more about, okay, I'm a pimp, I've got to uphold this image. So I've got to also be in control. And that's, of course, how he carried himself.
Don't love people. They don't care about them. They do, however, love what you can do for them. And they care about what you can do for them. Lori was an object that he valued for what she brought him. She, you know, her fame and notoriety in the sex industry brought him by being adjacent fame and notoriety. He was important because she was important. Now, her light couldn't shine brighter than his, but he was happy to have her there because look how important and cool I am that I'm with the hot porn chick of the moment. But he was always very careful to like not let it go to her, this uppity bitch, not let it go to her fucking head, because nobody can be better than Cece. And every time, and to your point, so you know, whenever she tried, there he was to make sure he cut her at the Achilles heel. There's no love there, Jesse. That was not love. That was, oh no, the golden goose.
Okay, all right. The moment she walked in with the award, by the way, that she won in Los Angeles, I knew that thing was not lasting. CC was doing something with it in order to show his dominance. That this shit, you know, this award don't mean shit to me.
I can read your mind.
Went up against the wall.
I can read your mind because I know you, Jesse. I've walked with you once upon a dream.
Oh, I've been there.
Your favorite CC moment is when he's trying to apologize to her in the most awkward dipshit man way possible, and he literally buys her booze, chocolate, and a puppy.
Like you, that's a trifecta, isn't it? the trifecta of like, oh, okay, look, I'm sorry. You know, let's make, because he at that point, you know, if you're looking at it kind of like the way that you're talking, he's wanting to make sure that his money doesn't walk away on him, because he already had one of those happen. You know, Dorothy left him and never came back. And it's interesting. He has that little interaction with her. And you know, he didn't cut her like I thought it was going to happen immediately when he saw Dorothy, by the way. So that's, I'll give CC a little bit of credit. But I think CC's most of his impact is just the mental state that he puts Lori in, and also Dorothy, who's very, very concerned about him. Even when she comes back and she feels that she needs to face him. But anyway,
you want to talk about how his demise? Because I know you sent me.
Yes,
let me set this up. So they gave him $15,000 to walk away from Lori, which he, you know, after a time accepted, and then he decided, I'm wounded. My ego has been wounded. I can't live with myself like this, so I have to continue to. I have to dig in now, and I have to do something to make myself feel better. I have to take something from somebody. And so he goes to Vincent and he's like, I want my back end points for Red Hot I want Lori's cut of her Red Hot performance, because when she shot that movie, she was still under me. So I'm due. There's some legal maneuvering there that we could discuss, but it's not important. Essentially that's what he's saying. He's like, while she performed under me, I'm due the money that she's paid. So where's my money? And Vincent's like, we haven't put the fucking movie out yet, you mook. Like, we don't have any money. There's nothing to give you. And he's wounded. He's not listening to reason. And so this all takes place in the back room of the French parlor. And so Bobby's there, and Vincent's just trying to talk fucking reason to him. Like, there's no money to give you, pal. Like, I understand what you're saying, but like, I don't know, maybe wait for the movie to come out, wait for receipts to come in, and we'll give you your cut. Everyone's going to get paid. It'll be fine. It won't, but that's a whole other story. And he's like, no, I'm CC and I'm wounded and I'm hurt. And my fragile ego has been destroyed. And I want someone to make me feel better right now. And Bobby, having had enough of the nonsense, starts to tell CC, shut the fuck up, you worthless pimp. And then he's like, hey, how about I fuck your wife in front of you? And Bobby, being of sound mind and reason, fucking goes after him. And CC almost kills. Oh, he stabs him with the screwdriver. And not enough to keep a good pimp down. So CC comes up and starts strangling Bobby, and Vincent comes behind him and fucking brains him with a hammer.
Yeah.
And so
you murdered the shit out of that motherfucker.
That's a great line. Because Black Frankie is so like matter of fact about it. Because it wasn't like, oh, white men run amok. It wasn't that. It was, well done. You murdered the shit out of him.
Yep.
I like your handiwork. Like I go away for 5 fucking minutes and you murder the shit out of another brother. What? All right, I'll go get the tarp. But you saw something on Facebook, and you're always so funny about like your Reddit, like you're like you and Gavin, your Reddit finds or your TV land finds, and like, oh, this is an interesting theory, and I often laugh and think they're full of shit, but it's it's fun. It's your podcast too, so lay it on me, Big Daddy.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thought is that CC was so wounded, his ego was so wounded that his intent was actually to push the envelope far enough to where he would get killed. Now, as to whether that is what really happened, I don't know. But I mean, he clearly he has this run-in with the mob, and he's not able to even convince them to come off of go up above 15.
By the way, it's very rare when you see CC in the role that he puts everybody else in. Any minute now, you're dead meat.
Yeah,
but him having a shoe shine, trying to fucking maneuver between the two capos, and they're like, and they're just sort of saying, "Brother, you're so close to dying. You
can money or death. Which one would you rather have right about now?
Cake or death, pal." And it's literally like, we promised a pretty girl not to beat the black off you. We're really doing you a courtesy. And CC not even reading the room. Like, I'm equal to you two. Can I talk about this for a second? It's a conversation I've had to have with my son a few times. When you're dealing with gangs or mobs, if you don't have muscle behind you, your words mean shit, and you're a dead person walking. You just don't know it. Okay, you're not Iron Man. You're not walking into these situations making demands. They have an army of fucking illiterate thugs ready to shoot you at a moment's notice. Get a fucking hold of yourself. The way any of this works is you make so much money, you're able to pay antisocial criminals to be quasi-loyal to you and will kill anyone that they say so. So, like, CC's sitting there, and he doesn't have any muscle.
No, he has nothing.
He has just enough heel wrestling charisma to turn, women with low self-esteem to hooking. That's it. And he's sitting there like, I'm just as good as the two capos. And they're like, you're so not, though. And it's like, you're going to take the fucking money we give you, and it's only because the pretty lady said that we should. Otherwise, you'd just be in a fucking alley. And then in the line of that entire scene, go on, I'll be there in a second when my shine is done. And you can just see Rudy just look at him like,
sure,
please. Like I just so want to kill you. I don't even, this isn't even about rage anymore. This is people like you shouldn't exist. And you the balls on you with no muscle.
I think that is the point that this whole, CC did basically push the envelope to where he would get killed theory comes in, because at that point he's so humbled. He has been so humbled by he's just lost his girl. If you abide by my theory that maybe he cared for her a little bit, he's now lost his girl that way as well. And he's also lost a ton of reputation, because he most likely the word's going to get out that he only took 15. He goes to dinner with the rest of the pimps, and he's telling everybody that he got 50 for her. Right. So he's lying to everybody, and not a big stretch. But then he goes in to the, I guess I wouldn't call it the heart of the jungle, but he goes in there and he's like trying to throw his muscle around, but he clearly agitates Frankie's Vinny's brother-in-law, Bobby. Thank you. He's clearly agitating him really on purpose. I mean, just to get under his skin, and then starts talking about that guy's wife. And
because he can't imagine anyone would ever do anything to him, because that's how big his ego is.
Right. And then it happens.
Certainly not these two fucking middle-aged white humps. You know, the one Bobby, the ex-construction worker with the bad heart, you know, and Vinny, who's never had an honest days of work in his life, and when he tried, had to sell it. You know, he's not thinking these two fucking honky cracker ass fucking weak motherfuckers are gonna do shit to him.
Right.
As it turns out, a screwdriver in the heart will hurt you just as good from a hump with a bad heart than not.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he meets his demise in the series. And it finally gets broke to Lori that he's dead. I think the last episode, when Frankie sits down, is like,
Vinny tells her because she won't get on the fucking plane and go to Los Angeles without because she's afraid, because she's like, not unless Cece says it's okay. They're like, motherfucker, Cece's dead.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. We got, is it Dominique?
The actress's name is Dominique Fishback.
Yeah, Dominique Fishback.
She was just in Transformers: Rise of the Beast as some fancy archaeologist, and here she is. Look, Dominique.
She's doing really good. She's doing good for herself.
Yeah.
And her arc here, what do we got going on? She's obviously leaning towards education. I find the most interesting part about her character, the interaction that she had after being recognized by as being someone in the porn industry, and she does not like that at all.
Well, the implication in that scene when the guy sees her is, look, she's trying to be more than just a sex doll, and she has done so much to better herself. She's in school, she's got a new job, she's on the verge of leaving Larry. She's trying so hard to be like, sex is a thing that I do, but it's not my entire personality. And then she sees the reflection of herself in this guy's eyes, and it's no, that is your entire person.
Right.
That is all you are as a person. You are a walking, talking sex doll.
Yeah.
And she rightfully freaks out.
Yeah, and she finally levels with that friend of hers that she made in class about what was going on. But
black me, always the always the friend, never the boyfriend, always trying to help a girl in need and being told, but I got a man.
But yeah, I think the most defining moment we already talked about, where she has her discussion with Larry at the end, and the whole facade is dropped, and she sees past everything, pimp and whore, and she's off to greener pastures, I guess you will. But listen, my favorite character out of this whole thing, out of this whole season,
let me pronounce his name right and be
Larry.
respectful to the fucking actor.
I'll sit back and watch.
Shut up. Gabenga Akanagbe. Nailed it.
You did. I mean, I loved watching him decide, you know what, maybe I could try and give this acting thing a shot. And he goes from pimp to actor, which is great. My favorite arc of the whole season is watching him try to become an actor, get the break of a lifetime to become the Wolf in Red Hot, and then actually like studying his craft, going and watching movies, which, by the way, oh my goodness, the movie that he was watching in the theater had I cannot remember his name now. G from Homicide. Yeah, you don't know. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Talk about Larry Brown while I look that up.
Okay. So
okay, I will.
So Gabenga, go Chris from The Wire. He's great in this. I like him more in season 2 he's more of a human being in season 2 than he is in season 1. Like season 1, he had some really funny lines, but season 2, he's less pimpy, he's less brutal. He's very much like, I like his story, because his story is essentially like, if there are two kinds of pimps in this world, there's the Larry pimp and the CC pimp. And the CC pimp is, I'm going to hang on to this identity because it's all I know, it's all I can be, it's the one that makes me feel comfortable, it's the one that gives me the supply that I need as a narcissist. Then there's Larry, who's like, well, this is what I do, this is how I grew up. But when he saw a different way, when he saw like, I actually have like talent, and I just need people to see me and give me a chance. And so like it's a slow transition, because it's like getting on screen, and then you run up against the glass ceiling of racism. Nobody, because you know what's funny about this, and I do want to spend a minute and talk about this because I do know that you are an authority on porn, as everyone in West Virginia and Ohio know. So
tri-state area, actually.
Right. So did you have a laugh knowing what you know about porn and about men's proclivities? When Harry's like, nobody wants to see their women fucking a black guy on film. And I'm like, I can tell you, I know like 20 people who disagree with that. All white guys. Dude, there was an episode of the Casual Heroes where Jed who mumble pegged into every fucking Casual Hero show. You couldn't understand half a word of what Jed said, but he was very clear and enunciated when he talked about wanting to see big black dick on screen.
BBC, baby.
Yes, sir. So it's so funny because like you don't know what you don't know until you see it, and then you're like, oh shit, everything I ever knew is wrong. No one would ever want to see a black baseball player crack one over the fence. And oh look, there's Jackie Robinson. There's no one would ever want to see a black guy, head up a superhero movie. Oh look, Black Panther made over $1 billion. Nobody likes black people. It turns out, in some cases they do. And so here it's just like, I can't put you in porn. Nobody wants to see a black guy fuck white women. As it turns out, that's all they want to see. Maybe throw some tits on him. But Jesse's like trying to stifle a laugh. Like, shut up with the trans humor. It's not funny. But so when he like gets over that particular hump of okay, well, we'll let your black people in the porn, it'll be fine. We'll keep you in the background. And then it's just like you can either play a slave or play a moron or a prisoner. And then it's like any possible way I could not sound half retarded.
Right. Yeah, like he's throwing the director notes on the script. He's like, how about I not pronounce it this way?
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay, well, whatever. I mean,
he has a great line about that. He's like, you wouldn't, I'm paraphrasing, but you wouldn't type in like, Ebonics for a white person. You would just give them the verbiage and they would pronounce it however. That's part of their performance. How about you let me decide if I want to, like, I think he specifically says drop the G's. Mm-hmm. And then it's so funny, the girl says the same thing. She's like, yeah, me too, boss. And the director's
how about
like,
I say can't instead of can't?
Yeah. How about you let me perform and be an actor and you not tell me how to do, specifically how to read lines. Just a thought. And he's not wrong. I talked about this with like Martin Scorsese when Robert and I were talking about Killers of the Flower Moon. Sometimes as a director, you just got to let your actors give you performance, and you can shape it. That's what Spike Lee did with Damon Wayans for Bamboozled. It's you let them give you performance, get different takes, and you kind of massage it as you go. But write the fucking thing the way write the words, right? Write them as they're spelled. And then let the actor do their thing, and it's great. And then then he gets into Red Hot because he happened to be in the right place at the right time when Lance Maddox, whatever the fuck his name was, fucked off the script, and everyone loves him. And then so by the end of it, he's like doing legitimate acting auditions.
Yeah, when we first kind of get the glimpse that he can act is when Candy realizes that. He finds out that he can't read very well.
No, but so the girl with the finger in the mouth, and then him panning to the camera. We good to fuck now?
And Candy's just like, okay, look, you go for it, and she finds out he's a spectacular actor.
Yeah.
It's great when he's not worried about what the script says. He's a great actor. Yaphet Kotto, by the way, you remember? Yaphet Kotto, Lieutenant Giardello from Homicide.
Yeah, didn't he run Palestine in the 80s?
Anyway.
Love you, Jesse.
All right. Let's move on here. Let me get back to the pictures here. We only got a couple more and then we can be out of here. Maybe, provided I can figure out how to. There we go. I just threw this on here specifically because for about 3 episodes, I was confused on how much of this film does the mob actually have? Because we've got the one guy who's got 100 or 90% of it, which I found out later. And then this guy has immediately, Frankie talks him into 20% of the show, 20% of Red Hot.
No. Okay. So you got to set it up right, though. Early on in the season,
that's a great scene.
They're filming a chase with Lance Maddox and Lori, which ends with him going, "There's a rat the size of a small bear. No, thank you." Several episodes later, they're reshooting the chase down, presumably Broadway in New York City. And now it's Larry, right?
Larry's, yep.
So to be clear, a dainty redheaded white woman is running terrified from a black guy in a fur coat. And I don't want to talk about racial profiling, but the cops suspect maybe something's wrong. Let's run the black guy over. And they do. Mm-hmm. They hit that motherfucker with a car. And then in logic that if you work in corrections makes total sense, but to everybody else, you're like, Brack? Everyone is saying, did you not see the camera? Did you not see the lights? Did you happen to notice the posse of people behind him all okay with this? Did you happen to see the girl come back and go, acting? And the cops are like, well, we hit him.
Yeah, we hit him. Go. He's got to go.
Not, let's take the cuffs off of you. Pardon me, 1,000 pardons.
Yes. No.
Black Star. No. Go about your business. Maybe we should provide some community service and kind of protect your shoot. None of that. Nope. We hit him. He has to go. We fucked up. He has to go. So Rudy sees this. Now, they're running into money problems. They keep running. They're having to reshoot things. Locations are costing money.
Frankie is a producer now. Frankie's a producer of the film.
Right. That well, in part 2 of Candy Has No Money to Shoot Her Fancy Film, she goes to him. Which, can we talk about that for a second? Because I don't know if you've ever been here. God knows I have in the last 2 years. Only almost every fucking day of my life. No attention, no attention, no attention, no attention, no attention. I need something. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Frankie.
Yeah.
Aren't I a pretty girl, Frankie? Aren't I a pretty girl, Frankie? Frankie, don't you have some? Heard you have money, Frankie? Poor guy's just playing handball, and in the dewy morning of New York City, not bothering anybody with 12,000 fresh ones in his pocket. And here comes Sexy Candy, who hasn't said hello to this motherfucker in a decade.
Right.
But she needs money now and knows he's got it. So suddenly Candy's also friendly with him. and she seduces, manipulates him.
Convinces.
Into giving her his money. And now he's a fancy producer.
Yep.
Oh, to be wooed by a pretty girl, Jesse.
I hear you.
So anyway, in part 3 of Candy keeps running out of money and needs to go to ne'er-do-well men for it. Fucking Frankie brings Rudy to the shoot, and Rudy thinks the cops hitting Larry with the car is part of the scene. And Rudy, and yet again, one of my favorite scenes of the show. Yet last year it was, and make sure you keep her fresh early. I don't want a black guy stretching her out. Which, by the way, my girlfriend heard me say that. It was like, why do I date you? I thought that was amazing. Well, here we are again. And Rudy's like, did the white cops just hit the black guy with the blue car? They did. My God, this is amazing.
What a film.
I'll give you 20,000 for 25%.
Yep. And then what we find out later is that the other mob connection that they have apparently had a stake in this at 90%. Now, I can't remember exactly how he got involved in it. Oh, it was Harvey Wasserman. Harvey went to him, right? Yeah. So Harvey's given 90% of it away. And then these two mob bosses come together and are like, wait a second, that's 115%. Yeah, I was doing the mental math on this, trying to figure out, like, at some point these mobsters are not going to get the money that they're supposed to get. When's that going to happen? Luckily that gets addressed. But anyway, that's why I threw that picture in there, because it's hilarious. Next up, and I think we're closing in on the end. We kind of talked about the social work aspect of this. There's that guy we were talking about, which, by the way, I just want to point out, Dorothy, right on the right.
Yep.
Okay. I swear to goodness, looks like Steve Zahn. Like, it could be her. That could be Steve Zahn's twin sister. I swear to goodness, if you,
that's
for some reason, just next time, well, we ain't going to see her anymore, because she, like you said, she meets her demise.
Yeah,
which came out of the blue for me. I mean,
maggot bath.
I did not realize. I mean, they were saying, hey, you might want to take it easy on these streets, because they had been papering and trying to get the attention of the ladies of the night, trying to get this out there. And the one guy ends up finally. The guy on the left there is like, I don't want to do anything because she's becoming
being an asshole.
Right.
At some point, like, again, if you leave, or if you don't want to play ball, you're not going to affect change. And like, it sucks, dude. Like, I've been there, part of it. I talked about why I got into social work, but I mean, even like over the years, I was like, especially when I was a young kid, I was like, I talk to my kids about this now. There's a line about, if you're under 30 and not a liberal, you're if you're not a liberal, and if you're under 30 and not a liberal, you have no soul. If you're over 30 and you're not a conservative, you have no brain. And it's meant to say, like, when you're a hopeful youth, you see the best that the world can be, and you want to push it towards that place. When you get to be older, you start to realize how hard that is and how intransigent human nature tends to be.
Right.
And you are running up the down staircase in most cases. And that's certainly where people ask me all the time, like, why do you stay in corrections? Why do you do what you do? Why do you have such an attitude towards everything? And I'm like, because I haven't put through the fucking mill. I've seen things, Dude, we have a program at my jail where we offer social work services to people, and they'll jump out of, and to get out of jail. Like, if you do this program, they'll release you early without, with no bail, and without having to pay bail. And people will take the program just to get out of the jail and hop out of the van on the way to the program.
Oh, jeez. Man.
Yeah, I can't get into it more than that without risking getting myself in trouble. But yeah, like, it's that's what you're dealing with out there. There are substance abuse clinics and mental health clinics and places where people get help all the fucking time. I mean, we've had public assistance for like decades. It's, and there's an argument to be made that it's caused more problems than it's solved. Certainly many conservatives would make that argument. So my point being, like, there's a lot of looking a gift horse in the mouth when it comes to human behavior. And I think a pragmatic social worker who's in any way realistic realizes you got to kind of color within the lines. When you start coloring outside the lines, you waste resources trying to affect change that isn't going to happen. Not to mention the fact, in the case of Dorothy, you end up pissing people off who don't have a care in the world about throwing you behind a dumpster.
Yeah. So these next two, we can talk about these real quick. I only got 4 more little photos here to go through. We have Officer Flanagan, who ends up getting into it with one of the ladies at the massage parlor. And I assume that he was going to leave his wife for her or something along those lines.
Oh, who hasn't wanted to leave their wife for a prostitute? Come on.
Ends up accidentally killing her in a heated argument in his car.
And who hasn't wanted to kill said prostitute?
And she ends up grabbing his watch during the fight. He dumps her body. They pull her body. Sure enough, his watch is in her hands. And our good buddy here, what was his name? I want to call him Colson, and that's not it. Alston ends up finding the body and grabbing the watch and kind of trying to save his name a little bit. But he ends up killing himself anyway. So tragic end for him. Alston and this new character here.
I have a city improvement guy.
he's going to be showing up, and by the end of the season, what is the name of? I cannot remember the name of the office that he is in.
Like Metropolitan Empowerment Project or something like that.
Right. Anyway, he's here in the season, essentially trying to get the police on board for what the next phase of like trying to clean up New York City is going to be.
Midtown Enforcement Project.
Midtown Enforcement Project. So that's really kind of all you get there. I do want to talk a little bit and just kind of mention
there's always a subplot I don't care about.
and this is it. Paul's I mean, he's trying to
open up the gayest of gay clubs I've ever heard. It's not a club, it's a supper club. You would think like the famous actress would come scampering out, and I'm like, fast forward.
Oh, well,
the only part of this entire thing is when he's at the town meeting and he's trying to explain to these uppity white women who don't want gay fucking clubs anywhere around. And one gay is like, look, assholes, I've been on this fucking community. I am so gay, and I've been on this board forever listening to your shit. And they're all like, well, we didn't mean you. Like, fuck you. You know, and here's your permit, asshole. Have fun.
His arc is interesting because he's trying to do stuff on his own. He's trying to open these bars on his own, not any mob help. That's the big thing.
To try to open up a business without mob money.
Right. Kind of tough to do.
Can we talk about that? They said go ahead.
Right.
And as soon as it opens, as soon as it opens, hey Paul, you have nice marble counters. What a lovely establishment you have. Be ashamed if it burned down. Probably should pay for protection.
Exactly. Exactly.
Why do you even try?
Goes into business with a boyfriend of his, and then that relationship falls apart, and then he's off opening up another. I think he's opening up another. Oh yeah, that's right. He's opening up a theater because he's become involved with an actor, and again. Yeah, at that point when he's doing the theater thing, he's embraced. All right, you know what? He goes right to the mob and he's like, "I need some money. See if you guys can help me do this."
Oh no, pragmatism wins again. Oh no, the realities of life.
Right. All right, and finally, let's have a moment of silence for Rodney.
Pour one out for Rodney.
Rodney has a bit of a situation on his hands in season 2. He's become addicted to drugs. A bit of a heroin
problem is what he's got.
A bit of a heroin problem. That's right. And then was it Shay, the girl he's got working under him. So by the end of the season, he comes up with a brilliant idea to rob a drugstore for its Dilaudid. Well, he shoots the guy behind the counter. Shay, who is doing watch, gets the hell out of there after she hears the gunshots. And about that time, the police get called. And lo and behold, it is none other than the Karate Kid himself who shows up.
That's right.
And he's sitting out front. Rodney opens up the door with the gun in his hand. And Ralph Macchio unloads. And then realizes, I thought it was hilarious that he walks over and he looks down and he's like, Rodney? And he laughs. Like after putting like 6 bullets in him, he goes, Rodney? He's just recognizing like, oh, it's funny running into you here. As you're lying.
Fancy meeting you in a gunfight.
And then Rodney's like, fuck you, and then dies.
Yeah.
So Method Man, unfortunately, I assume we will not be seeing him again in season 3.
No, he does not get resurrected.
Ah, damn. I find it interesting that, we're hitting the end of the show here for season 2. Season 3, by the way, I just kind of rolled into season 3. I didn't watch the whole of the first episode, but I see that it starts out and we are in 1984 in season 3. So we are
the last year of the golden age of porn, Jesse.
Yep. So that's all I have as far as show and tell. We had a good conversation here with this season.
Jesse,
for sure.
Jesse, you and I always have good conversation and intercourse.
Oh, all the time. all the time.
There has been a lot of intercourse between Jesse and I over the hey. This is a family show.
Sure.
So that's it. That is our season 2 review in conversation and intercourse on the Deuce and the good people at Blown Deadline. David Simon, the great works. All those words in not that particular order. So yesterday there was no Damn You Hollywood because Dorian was not available, and I originally had plans, and I ended up not having plans. Doesn't matter. Tomorrow instead is Damn You Hollywood, Five Nights at Freddy, the surprise hit of the season, just making all the monies. Yeah, I know. For Five Nights at Freddy's, like Avengers Endgame for horror fans. So anyway, I always come back. So that's tomorrow. It'll be Dorian. It'll be hosted by Alexis. I will not be on this review, thank God. It'll be hosted by Alexis. Robert will be there. Dorian Price will be there. Jason Teasley, the Protocol Son, he'll be there as well.
The Protocol Son.
Thursday, I have no dates, Jesse. I have no dates, and I have no bananas. However, I am going to be doing a double shot of podcasts. In the afternoon time, we're doing A Long Road to Ruin. It'll be me and Sean Comer. We'll be doing the Red Curtain trilogy, which consists of Strictly Ballroom, Romeo and Juliet, and Moulin Rouge. This is a director focus for Baz Luhrmann. And then in the evening time, Jason said no, but then Pat picked up the ball and dunked it. So we will be looking at the second and final season of Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers. This weekend, we've got, hey, Jesse, do you remember Jesse Starcher, when you, me, and Alexis did a commentary track for Monty Python and the Holy Grail because you
I've never seen it.
You had never seen it, and I tied you to a chair and Clockwork Orange style made you watch it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And then Sunday, Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays is Woods of Ypres, Woods 5 Part 2. Part 1 was this previous Sunday. And then Evan Bevins, good to his mother. He does not watch the pornography. He'll be on for a comic strip. We'll be looking at Two Guns, the movie and the book. And then
interesting.
Oh, Jesse, I'm not done with you yet, baby doll.
No, I don't doubt it.
Sexy baby. You can't get away from Marky Mark. Like CC, Mark, get it. Jesse, my bottom bitch, and Robert Cooper, my other bitch. We will be doing the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox, Poppy, Zig. And I think we decided that was our Halloween show. Is that what we decided, or was our Halloween show? We're going to do like all covers.
I don't know. I don't recall. I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But we're doing a Metal Hammer of Doom. We're going to look at Poppy, Zig, and I'm sure Jesse will want to talk more about AI or something.
Oh, yeah.
So Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox. We tell sexy stories and out friendships. The next time we'll be talking about the Deuce season 3 will be November 14th. We'll wrap that up. And then we will finally end our journey from the corner to the Deuce on December 5th with the Plot Against America, which I have never seen.
Okay.
So that's some new shit from David Simon that I have not watched yet. So that'll be fun. I'm at Mark Radulich on Twitter, and I'm at Mark Radulich on TikTok. Check out my TikTok. You can see my concert footage from the 40 fucking concerts I went to this year. Jesse, did you see the list?
I did see the list, dude. That was insane.
Yeah. Did you want to come here and just slap the shit out of me?
I'm sure you're probably doing that yourself. It's okay.
Yeah,
when you see a list like that and you're like, holy shit.
What had happened was, what happened was, I was having a conversation, and I was texting a girl, and I was like, these are all the shows I've been to, and I listed them all, and then I was like, that's a pretty massive list I've got going there. I should show everyone my massively thick list. So I did. I sent it to every girl I could. Yeah, this huge two-handed list of concerts that I went to. And my girlfriend, who loves a good thick list, like the one I've got, she was I need you to make this list thicker and meatier. So put the dates and the venues with it. So me being who I am, I made a spreadsheet. And and then I whipped out my spreadsheet and I showed it to everybody. I unconsensually sent that pic of that spreadsheet to everyone I knew and posted it on Facebook. Everyone needed to see my huge list.
NSFW, not spreadsheet for work. Correct. Not spreadsheet for work.
Totally not a spreadsheet for work. That I was showing everyone. Anyway, so, and then I had a moment of like internal crisis because I looked at that and I'm like, oh my God, by the end of December, I'll have gone to 40 fucking shows. I have a problem.
Dude.
This isn't a hobby anymore. This has now become an addiction. And I need to stop. People go to like 1 or 2 shows a year. I went to 1 or 2 shows a week.
Yeah, dude, that's insane. That is insane.
Yeah, that was well, things you do. You know, Jesse, when you're just sitting there playing handball by yourself and a pretty girl nuzzles up to you wanting, time and attention and possibly your money, what are you going to do but buy him tickets to go see Misfits and Megadeth?
Yeah, I get it. Completely do.
Sometimes you just got to take a girl to Less Than Jake, Jesse, and her kid.
Less Than Jake.
And her not boyfriend.
Yeah.
I might be projecting real stories. Anyway.
You may be.
So, Jesse, why don't you whip out your comics podcast and show it to everybody?
Oh, I think I will, as a matter of fact. Hey, 2 things for the network. That's Unspoken Issues. That happens right here on the Source Material Comics podcast. I know that's not this podcast, but it's on this network. The Source Material Comics podcast, which is on the W2M network. You can check that out. Recently, Unspoken Issues dropped where it was me, Evan Bevins, and Chris Armstrong talking about Spirits of Venom. That's where Venom hung out with Ghost Rider, Blaze, Spider-Man, all sorts of crazy stuff happens. Great for the spooky season. Happened back in 92, I think, is when that occurred.
Oh, but everyone had pockets.
Oh, yeah. Everybody had them pouches, buddy. Everybody had them pouches.
Yes.
You can hear me and Mark talk about Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was a good book. That was a good book. And next week, I don't know if you said it or not, but yeah, Elvira meets Vincent Price, baby. That's happening.
That was a quality conversation that I enjoyed.
It was good. Hollywood was involved. It was fun. I do want to personally shout out my YouTube. So I think it, as far as I could tell, at Source Material 3439. I don't know if you can just look that up easily in the search for YouTube. Mark's been going back there and checking out the old Metal Hammer of Doom extras that we have on there. A lot of great content there.
Every time I get depressed.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I don't take Zoloft. I don't take Paxil. I don't take none of that Xanax. I take the Metal Hammer of Doom extra.
Because it will put a smile on your face.
Let me tell you how I replayed that X-Men video game commentary that we did. And you guys, I just about put a pencil in my eye. I uncontrollable laughter every fucking time. I might be thinking about the state of my life and relationships and feeling like I have no hope. And then Jesse, after dealing with me for how many hours that was that night, and then Robert and Ronnie on top of that. Between me telling Ronnie you already told that story and Ronnie being passive aggressive for the next 12 minutes and Robert being Robert. Jesse, Robert being Robert, and then me, Dick Joke McGee, being myself. Jesse was just like, I fucking hate podcasting, white people, and pencils. He was done.
Oh man, check those out. They're a lot of fun. So we did one for the Simpsons, X-Men. We did one for Star Wars.
We did one for the Avengers.
The Avengers. Oh,
why should it go well?
Well, recently I have been uploading at least once every other day a comic called Nightmare. I covered a whole 6-issue series. So if you're interested in comics, extreme comics from the 1990s, that's usually in association with Rob Liefeld, you could go check those out too. Those ain't doing too bad. I think I got 71 views on issue 3. Look out, folks. I might hit triple digits before.
Oh my God, the critical Starcher.
Oh yeah, the critical Starcher. That's it. I'm done. I am done.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on our discussions of feminist pornography by 2 neckbeard men. Be well, peace. Be well, be safe, and behave.